to the support of my family who shared in my sad condition. Fate, however, had not exhausted its cup of bitterness. I was thrown into a prison in a foreign country. I had no alternative left but to linger in a loathsome confinement or to accept military service. On one hand, my wife and children reduced to beggary and separated from me. And on the other hand, to turn my arms against my own country. The alternative was sad, the struggle of feelings violent. At last the father triumphed over the citizen. I seized a sword that galled my hand, and who amongst my readers will not understand my situation? I served Mexico, served her loyally and faithfully. I was compelled to fight my own countrymen, but I was never guilty of the barbarous and unworthy deeds of which I am accused by my enemies. Ere the tomb closes over me and my contemporaries, I wish to lay open to publicity this stormy period of my life. I do it for friends as well as for my enemies. And I challenge the latter to contest with facts the statements I am about to make, and I leave the decision unhesitatingly to the witnesses of the events. Juan Seguin.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. It's always great to have you here with us as well. It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker for today, to whom sits to my left. And everybody has smiled as soon as he walked in the door. So it is my honor to be here to introduce Secretary Henry Cisneros, who is now the chairman of City View Companies. After serving 3 terms as a city council member in 1981, he became the first Hispanic American mayor of a major U.S. city and served 4 terms as mayor of San Antonio, Texas. In 1992, President Clinton appointed him to be Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. After leaving HUD in 1997, Mr. Cisneros was the President and Chief Operating Officer of Univision Communications, the Spanish language broadcaster, and currently serving on Univision's Board of Directors. Mr. Cisneros has served as president of the National League of Cities, as deputy chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, and is currently an officer of Habitat for Humanity International. Mr. Cisneros remains active in San Antonio's leadership, where he is the chairman of the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. He is currently a member of the advisory board of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Broad Foundation. Mr. Cisneros has been inducted into the National Association of Home Builders Hall of Fame and honored by National Housing Conference as a Housing Person of the Year. Mr. Cisneros was presented the Common Purpose Award for demonstrating the potential bipartisan cooperation and Casa y Comunidad Latino Home and Neighborhood Design. Was awarded the Benjamin Franklin Silver Medal in the category of Best Business Book of 2006. Mr. Cisneros holds a Bachelor of Arts and a Master's degree in Urban and Regional Planning from Texas A&M University. He earned a Master's degree in Public Administration from Harvard University, studied Urban Economics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, holds a doctorate in Public Administration from George Washington University, and has been awarded more than 20 honorary doctorates from leading universities. He serves as an infantry officer in the United States Army. Mr. Cisneros is married to Mary Alice P. Cisneros, who from 2007 to 2001 served on the San Antonio City Council, and they have 3 beautiful children, Teresa, Mercedes, and John Paul, and 4 grandchildren. At this time, please give us a round of applause for Mr. Henry Cisneros.
Thank you very much, Ms. De La Rosa, for your very, very nice introduction. Mayor Keil, congratulations, sir, on the progress of Seguin, council members and other public officials who are present, members of the Seguin descendants and family represented here on the dais by Albert Seguin Carvajal, to the Seguin Historical Society, Teatro de los Artes, to this wonderful, authentic rendition of history by the Tejano Reenactment Group. Congratulations for the dignified way in which you carry forward a sense of realism and genuineness about that period of Texas history. And to all present fellow Texans, it's a great pleasure to be here today from San Antonio, especially with this hardy band of Texans and Seguin area residents and family members who brave the flooding and the rain in order to be here. But that's a small, small sacrifice when we stop to acknowledge the great sacrifices of a man like Juan Seguin and other heroes who made our state's independence possible. They dealt with revolution and war, they dealt with bloodshed and loss, and yet they persevered. And as a result of that, we are here today in free and prosperous Texas. I want to commend this wonderful city of Seguin and this spirit of recognition of history. I have long admired Seguin. I have been here many, many times over the years, whether it was family members who attended Texas Lutheran University, or my work as mayor of San Antonio with my contemporary of the time, Betty Jean Jones, who was a school teacher and a very good mayor, just like Mayor Keil is today. And we established a working relationship that has resulted in things like economic development for our region, working together so that efforts like the Caterpillar plant, for example, can come to this part of our region and create jobs and prosperity. So I have a long, deep affection for Seguin, and what I'm about to say is not exaggeration or false praise, but I have frequently thought to myself, if there was a place in Texas I wanted to live, apart from San Antonio, which I love and was born to, it would be Seguin. There's so much that is here that is historic and recreational, and the river and all the rest of it. As a matter of fact, my assistant for 30 years now, Sylvia Arce, was born in Seguin. And as I asked her yesterday to help me prepare for my remarks today, she told me that she went to Seguin Elementary School here in Seguin, and only went to San Antonio to go when in her high school years. So we have a long and deep respect for Seguin. And I feel a personal kinship toward Seguin because as mayor of San Antonio, elected in 1981, at 33 years old, I was the first person of Hispanic heritage to be mayor of San Antonio since Juan Seguin. Juan Seguin was mayor of San Antonio twice, in about 1833 and then again in 1841 in the New Texas. And there had not been another person of Hispanic heritage elected mayor until 1981 when I got elected mayor 140 years later. So there was always a natural connection to that lineage that ended with Juan Seguin in 1841. And I've studied his history. In fact, I helped a professor at Texas Tech write a biography of Juan Seguin, which I think will be one of the definitive treatments of his life. So let me share with you today some thoughts on Juan Seguin and his legacy. But let me begin by just reflecting on the history, the actual factual history of Juan Seguin. Many of you know it, so forgive me if I am repetitious. Juan Nepomuceno Seguin was born on October 27th of 1806 in San Antonio de Beja, a province of what was then Spain, the Viceroyalty of New Spain. His parents were Juan Jose Maria Erasmo Seguin and Maria Josefa Becerra, and they were both public people. His mother was a postmaster, and he helped her, Juan did, in her work. So he learned public service early, assisting his mother in her postmaster responsibilities. And his father was frequently away from the family because he was in Mexico helping write the Constitution of 1824. Again, from his mother he learned service in practice. From his father he learned the world of ideas and principles in writing the Constitution of Mexico. Juan Seguin himself was married in 1825. Now, if you figure the mathematics, 1825, he was born in 1806. He was 19 when he got married, and he married Maria Gertrudis Flores de Abreu. Now, it's lucky they got started early because they had 10 children. And he was elected an alderman or council member of San Antonio in December of 1828. So again, do the math, he would have been 22 years old when he started to serve, and he served on numerous electoral boards before becoming mayor or alcalde of San Antonio in December of 1833. He would have been 27 years old as mayor of San Antonio. He was the political chief of Bexar County until 1834, and in 1835, just to show you the various dimensions of this man, he was a mayor, political chief, administrative leader, but he was asked to lead a relief force to Monclova, Mexico, when the Federalist governor of Monclova requested help in fighting off rebels. He developed a sense of principles about freedom and independence early in his life, perhaps because of his father's work on the Mexican Constitution. But for example, when Santa Anna, already a dictator, repealed the Mexican Constitution of 1824, Juan Seguin was very critical, publicly critical of the Mexican leaders. And he gladly joined the Texas Revolution when the time came because he already had experience with Santa Anna as a dictator and did not want that level of tyranny imposed on the emerging as free Texas. So he joined the Texas Revolution in part to rid Mexico and the area of Santa Anna's rule. From 1835, 1836, he recruited and commanded troops for the Texian army. Was actually out recruiting and drafting men to serve in the Army of Texas, and was commissioned a captain by Stephen F. Austin in October of 1835. Now let's keep the dates in mind. The Alamo fell in March 6th of 1836. On April 21st, 1836 was San Jacinto, and the actual battle that won Texas independence outside of Houston. So now we're talking, backing up from that, October of 1835, when he was commissioned an officer by Stephen F. Austin in the Texas Army and tasked with supplying the Texas forces with food and provisions. And he went out on scouting missions, leading troops to the missions around San Antonio in search of suitable camping facilities for the conflict that was coming. And he participated in an early clash with Santa Anna's troops at the Battle of Concepcion, at the missions that are now designated a World Heritage Site just south of San Antonio, what was then San Antonio de Nejar. They're now inside the city, but in those days, they were along the river, San Antonio River, south of the city. Again, keep those dates in mind. Tensions are building. The Texans are gathering forces. It's the fall of 1835. The battles will culminate the following spring, a few months later, 6 months later, in March and in April of 1836. Martín Perfecto de Cos was appointed as military governor of Texas by General Santa Anna, President Santa Anna, who was his brother-in-law. And he established his headquarters in San Antonio in October 9th. We're here in October of 2015. This is October of 1835. And this is a little known incident, but 160 rancheros, Mexican ranch owners, dressed like these gentlemen over here, and other Tejanos, led by Juan Seguin, José Carvajal, Plácido Benavides, Salvador Flores, and Manuel Leal joined Stephen F. Austin and approximately 400 Texas troops in what was called the Siege of Bexar County. And after a 2-month battle, General Cos surrendered, which is why Santa Anna came. He was losing control of Texas. The Texian forces and the Rancheros together were basically breaking down Mexico's control over this region of Texas. And as a result, Santa Anna organized a European-style, massive military force, as powerful as you could be in those days, thousands, 5,000 strong, with artillery and cannons and full military capability, and started moving north toward Texas. In January of 1836, so we're now past that fall into January, Juan Seguin was commissioned a captain in the regular Texas Army. And upon Santa Anna's return into San Antonio, where he hoisted his flag on San Fernando Cathedral, what we now know as San Fernando Cathedral. And if you know San Antonio, you know the cathedral is about half a mile from the Alamo. So the Mexican forces were coalescing there around what is the San Antonio River and the cathedral, and beginning the cannonading into the Alamo. Juan joined William B. Travis and the other heroes of the Alamo on February 23rd inside the Alamo, and was there for the beginning of the 13-day siege before the Alamo would fall